and all invitees present in this session. A special welcome to Jacinta for taking time out. I'm sure it has been a very busy day for you. It's just about 11 o'clock in the morning in Mangalore, India, but I am sure it is somewhere around 4:30 in the evening in Australia. So ma'am has already had a tiring day, but she's obliged to make this presentation for us. So very warm welcome to you, ma'am. I also welcome all the participants who have who will not just be presenting their papers in the afternoon, but have taken time to go through these sessions and absorb all the information that they can throughout these sessions. A warm welcome to all the participants. I also welcome all our dear students who have been like sponges, ready to absorb all the information. A very warm welcome to all our students as well. I would like to put on record here that our dear Secretary Sir of SGME Society, Dr. Yashovarma Sir, is also joining us for this session. A warm welcome to Sir as well. Without much ado, I would like to brief on the credentials of Jacinta ma'am. In her 20 plus years with Infosys, Jacinta has been aligned with many different segments, units, and geographies, and now leads the HR function for Infosys across Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, and Japan. As an integral member of the regional leadership group, Jacinta is responsible for leading multiple HR teams across APAC and driving the talent strategy, which transforms business imperatives into people related initiatives. Jacinta hails from Pune, India, and currently lives in Melbourne with her family. Outside work, Jacinta is a keen gardener and particularly enjoys growing fresh fruit and vegetables that she turns into delicious dishes for her family. I think that's the only point which we match on, ma'am. Thank you so much for being with us here today. The floor is open for your discussion. Shall I present the PPT?
Yes, please.
Entire screen. Milli.
If you could just do a slideshow so that we could see the entire.
Give me 1 second.
Awesome. Thank you. So, good morning, SDM College. I hope you all are doing well and I hope you all have enjoyed the session so far. I was suggesting my team the other day that probably we must start replacing the word, or rather the words, how are you, with are you double waxed? So, my question goes to all of you: are you double waxed? If you are not, please do that. I'm Jacinta, and thank you for having me here. In December 2019, I remember very distinctly, I came back from my last official trip, last rather overseas official trip, which happened to be the last one for me. And I came back home, cribbing to my family, cribbing to myself, saying, I'm just so tired of this travel. I've had enough. I need a break. I was traveling nonstop the entire 2019. I pretty much really needed the break. But little did I know that the entire universe would collude to fulfill my wish and shut down the entire world. So it's funny, right? I mean, we ask for something, we are granted, and then we're not happy. So let's get started. So this picture out over here, I'm sure most of you are able to relate to. Most of you probably are seeing yourself in there, and I see myself in all of those aspects for the which I have spent in the last 18 plus months. What I'm currently missing is I'm absolutely missing so many things, rather, I should say, right now. The fact that I cannot see you all, nor can I sense any of your expression that you will have for the entire next 1 hour. I will not be able to gauge if I'm boring you or even if I'm hearing or if you are hearing me. But I will trust myself that I can keep you engaged while I speak to the screen. Now, let me tell you why I am excited to be here, and since more, or rather, why am I really excited to be here? Let me complete that. So, since most of you are actually based out of my beautiful hometown, Bangalore, so what we're going to do is we're going to spend the next 30 minutes sharing views, followed by discussion and Q&A, like what Dr. Seema just mentioned. No, so yeah, so let's get started. Let me first probably just touch upon and talk about myself. Like what Dr. Seema said, I hail from a beautiful city called Pune, where I have lived most of my life. But while growing up in Pune, my every summer holiday would be in Mangalore. So I have strong connection ties because that's where my parents grew up. I still have my extended family there, and I love everything about Mangalore. I love you, beautiful people, your beaches, all the lovely fish you get there, the cashews, the mangoes, the jackfruits, and the list can go on. So, thank you, Dr. Pramila Shetty, for inviting me for this conference to share my views. And I am mindful that I'm sharing this views with a learned set of professors and the smart students that you have told me about. So let me give my best shot in probably translating what this workplace transformation of a lifetime means. A little bit about me at my work. I joined Infosys as a young girl in Jan 2000. It's been about 21 years since then. While working with Infosys, I've worked in different geographies, including US, and now I'm based in Australia since 2017, which is about a little more than 4 years. In my role as a regional HR head for Infosys, I'm responsible for leading multiple HR teams across the PAC region and, of course, driving the talent strategy, which transforms business imperatives into my employee requirements. For those of you who don't know Infosys, Infosys is a global leader in next generation digital and consulting services with 260,000 employees globally operating in 50 countries with an annual revenue of 14 billion USD. On a personal front, I'm a mother of two young teenagers and a wife of a wonderful husband who inspires me each day. Before we discuss about workplace transformation, I thought we must all pause and recollect on what personal transformations each one of us have gone through, of course, over these last 18 months, and how has those benefited or probably even, just on the slide, can I just request you to go back because I will request you to change the slides as I move on to the next items. Sorry, thank you for that. Before we, get to really to the slides, I wanted, some of you probably to go onto your chat window and make this a little more interactive and, put in what do you think, what are those transformations you have individually gone through? What are those changes? And they could be good, they could be bad, or probably experience which haven't been good. Anything that you have experienced over the last 18 months, and probably that will be a good experience sharing for people here, for the students here, to understand, how have they transformed themselves, what did they do in these last 18 months. It could be just one or two things. While you all are thinking and typing, let me talk about mine. And of course, I'll start with the positive ones. I think I developed to manage the camera, which I will admit that I was camera shy. I think I tried to work on it. That helped me. I always complained how in the last 20 years, like I said before, I never got time to spend to spend time, in fact, in my home with my family, right? And now I want to run away from them. On the work front, I started to rethink, reimagine so many aspects of my work and how I could deliver them remotely to my employees, because that was the key ask for me for my work front over the last 18 months. The other positives that happened was that we started reaching out to our employees even more. So I believe this pandemic has been a blessing in disguise for me, at least personally. While I've spoken about the positives, let me tell you, not everything was hunky dory. What did not work for me? The initial 6 months of pandemic was completely crazy. Line was completely blurred between work and home time. My work hours doubled. I felt sick working from home. Every day was a new challenge. The sadness, the uncertainty depressed us each day, depressed me each day. I started to miss all my official travels, my colleagues, of course, the family, extended family back in India, because obviously there was no travel, and the list can go on and on. Now remember, all of us wanted and loved work from home, but it was considered as a taboo at most of the workplaces. And now we all want to go back to work. We are absolutely tired of this routine, but we are also loving a lot of things around what we are doing right now. Before I move on to my next slide, let me tell you what we are hearing from our employees. And I'm sure this is really what you are going to look forward to. This is what you would also want. The first thing they're telling us is, I want flexibility without compromising collaboration. I want to be part of an inclusive culture without the constraints of location. I want to learn and grow my career, but not have to commute to do that. Are you folks able to relate to that? Think about it, at least one of it probably would resonate to you. But before I provide you the glimpse of the challenges that we're currently facing at our workplace, let me tell you my selfish motive of being here. Firstly, of course, my love for Mangalore and for all you Mangaloreans. But secondly, I want to hear from you management students on what do you think are your views and how do you think you envisage the future workplace to be? What do you think are your expectations? What can organizations think of adopting? The comment, the chat window, I think I'm going to definitely take a copy of me copy of it with me because I want to get your views. I want to take back your views so that I can prepare our workplace with the views that I'm going to get from this session. And during this session, while we get on to our challenges, we discuss some of it. If possible, try and give me a thumbs up, try and give me a thumbs up, thumbs down if you think you don't agree or you agree or whatever it may be. And that would be merely because we would be interacting. And remember, these are really the skills of creating interactive sessions on webcams. So, which means we have to start now. If you need to be connected with me, I need some of those reactions. And if I need to be connected with you, I will have to get some of those. Right? So, are you guys with me on that? Awesome. Okay, so I'll break this session into three parts. The first part we'll cover is what are the current organizations, challenges, and how do we manage them? The second part would be how do you, as management students, prepare for the rapidly evolving workplace? Does that make sense? And the third part would be how do business schools, universities adopt and evolve in this rapid workforce, and workplace transformation in their curriculum and academics? In fact, I happened to get into the last session towards the end, and I did hear some of those questions which were pretty relevant to these three topics that I thought we would cover. So I think I have heard some of your views, and it will be excellent to really discuss and make this more interactive. We'll move on to the next slide, Dr. Pramila, if you may please help me with that. Okay, so here is a comical representation of the challenges that organizations are facing in this new reality. Now, this comical presentation was actually drawn by one of my team members, who is a great cartoonist. As you can see in this slide, although comical, organizations have various external challenges which were prevalent even before pandemic, and it continues to be there, right? Those challenges are not going to change, which is of course the market demands, client expectations, competitors, skill shortages, and environmental uncertainty, which has now added to the other complexities. Apart from those, what are our organization internal challenges? They are, of course, aligning to these strategies, managing employee expectations, and aspirations added, or rather, I would say, add to the complexity. Just as the office has changed forever, so have the conventions, infrastructure, and expectations across the broader workplace. You would all agree that we are in an uncharted territory in this post pandemic reality, and there will undoubtedly be even more complications on work. Now, let me tell you, there is no right or wrong approach, and we couldn't have predicted the pandemic any better than we could have predicted the workforce or the workplace transformation of a lifetime that followed, or what's to come next for that matter. We all can assume, yes, probably the worst has passed by, but we are still uncertain on what is the future and how does it hold. Whether we like it or not, the sooner we get comfortable and prepare for uncertainty, it will be better for all organizations, communities, and all we individuals. While none of us know what the right answers are, the past 18 plus months of research and experience have provided us some learnings. I'll try and share what those learnings and insights are, and probably leave you all with thoughts and ideas to ponder. To my next slide, please. Okay, so Infosys conducted a global survey with around over 1,000 respondents from companies representing multiple industries across US, UK, France, Germany, Australia, and New Zealand to gauge view into digital, physical, and cultural transformation. What it also did was it tried to emphasize on, or it tried to get insights on how the speed of decision making on workplace transformation initiatives has increased, and also other areas like learning, reskilling, and process automation. Which, of course, how did we keep employees engaged and motivated while the organizations were driving productivity and efficiency? Now, let's look at the key findings from this survey. 55% of companies believe that digital transformation will significantly impact workplace modernization. But the common concern faced by organizations are deciding the right technology or the solution. The other interesting part is cybersecurity and data security remain the top priority for 67% of the organizations. Business plans to increase investments in connectivity and collaboration to enable their increasingly hybrid workplaces. The other interesting one is 53% of the companies believe that some jobs will permanently shift to remote working. Permanently, we're talking about. 83% of the companies say continuous learning, hiring, and building a digital savvy workforce will be crucial to cope with the shift in cultural initiatives. 55% of companies have employee well-being policies built into their workplace strategies, which was never the case before pandemic. 68% of the companies see enhanced employee experience as a key benefit of workforce transformation, which means employee experience will stand out as one of the top requirements for any workforce transformation or workplace transformation. 52% of employees believe that it will offer flexibility to employees, which means half the organizations today will say that we want to offer flexibility to our employees because that is the ask on the table. Which means how is the workplace transformation is very, very important for most of the organization. How will they establish that? How will they implement that? We'll move on to the next slide, please. Now, reflecting over this, we as an organization have been pondering over how can business navigate this workforce transformation. Presuming that essentials of infrastructure, tools, and equipments are in place to enable, say, remote working, organizations can double down and support remote employees on their career journey. And how will they do that? There are a couple of things which we as an organization have already started building on, and that has benefited us in a long run. First is solidifying a work from home policy, investing in a virtual team building, reviewing our own internal communication strategy, empowering our teams and managers to make their own decision. Now, these are some of the things we have been actively working over the last 18 months as an organization. The new reality is to accommodate these changes and become a more sentient workplace where we will need to ensure all the three dimensions of work, workforce, workplace are transformed. We cannot leave any one of it. All three of them are going to be extremely important. Now, in a nutshell, from a business standpoint, there are three main shifts that have happened. The first shift, digital transformation has accelerated. We are expecting this to sustain. Every sector's digital agenda were brought forward during the pandemic period. The second one, hybrid work and experiences are here to stay. And importantly, the pandemic has underlined it on how it can be effective. And the third shift, which is an important one, this shift has also disrupted our routines. And while in the short term, our workforce has adjusted, adapted, but there is a significant impact on employee well-being due to the overworking, like I've said, and the blurred boundaries between life and work. I'll move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so this should be an interesting one for you. And this slide probably has been my favorite. So how do you as management students prepare for the rapidly evolving workplace? Two important aspects here, in my view. There could be many more, but the first two important, but I've just tried to emphasize on two of them, which I thought probably were very, very apt in the current situation. So the first one is making yourself comfortable in a hybrid environment. And how would you do that? Collaboration via digital channels. I think you've heard enough of it, which means continuously learning new digital tools. In my experience, if I had to look back 20 years ago, was I prepared for this journey? I don't think I was, simply because I didn't know which were the digital channels. I didn't know what were those new digital tools. I don't think I would have been prepared. But you students, I'm sure you guys are prepared on that. The second one, obviously, is the developing communication skills for the webcam, which I spoke about earlier. I think this one will be very, very important. If you remember the survey that we just spoke about, 52% of the organizations are saying that 50% of their work will be can be performed anywhere, which means they'll permanently shift from work from office to work from home, which means developing your communication skills for the webcam becomes extremely important. Creating distinct boundaries between learning and time for yourself. We need to give enough emphasis for this. Our mental well-being is extremely important. And why I keep repeating that is because, remember, the organizations will hire people for the right attitude, for the right for flexibility, will hire for the right mindset, or I would call it growth mindset. So if that's what is required, then we need to have people who have the right who have the right mental well-being. And if that's not in place, then you are not going to be able to adopt to it. Remember, at the end of it, skills can be taught. Organizations will be happy to teach you the skills, but if you don't come with the right attitude, if you don't come with the flexibility that is required, it will be very, very difficult. The second part of it is, this is a favorite one for me. Or rather, in fact, I missed one more piece in the first one, building relationships and trust in a hybrid world. Now, this one is a huge challenge. We don't have answers to it, but I'm sure we all are going to get there. The second piece is careers as jungle gym and not as a ladder. Let me tell you, a linear career path may not exist anymore. Having a predefined career plan is setting yourself for disappointment. And why is that going to happen? Because rapid digitization means you will have to reskill, upskill throughout the course of your lives and explore opportunities that would be beyond your majors and specialization. Of course, I cannot emphasize how important lifelong learning is in the context of careers today. In fact, I did read up your college motto and I saw lifelong learning as one of the important aspects for your college. Due to the rapid digitization, there's tremendous shortage in the workforce for the right skills today, which is an excellent opportunity for all you students. However, your ability to make the most of these opportunities is dependent on how quickly you can adopt. As an example, let me tell you, Infosys in Australia recently started a program in collaboration with the government here locally to help professionals from a diverse career backgrounds like hospitality. For example, a chef with 15 years of experience can shift his or her career in cybersecurity. And we are collaborating with the government to make that happen. We have currently a lot of displaced workers who are wanting to learn technology, who are wanting to make a shift in their careers, and this program will give them an opportunity. And let me tell you, this will become more and more common in every country. We'll move on to the next slide, please. How do business schools, universities adopt and evolve this rapid workforce, and workplace transformation? Now, in my opinion, transformation begins with a change in culture. There are two aspects, in my view, which are very, very important as we reset ourselves to the hybrid model of working, or rather, hybrid model of working, training, education, anything. So, performance driven culture. How do universities, how do these schools create that culture is going to be very, very important. So, preparing the students for the culture that's increasingly performance and productivity driven. If you may have, I'm sure you may have heard, there is a rise in gig workers. Now, what the pandemic has done is it has taught us that you can perform, you can be efficient without being in any physical space. You could, or rather, in any physical office. You could be anywhere, which means teaching skills like productivity, hence, is a priority. While definitely all of us agree that the classroom learning has tremendous benefits, which is what we need to add on is the flexibility part, which means connecting remotely. Assessments and evaluation need to evolve in an hybrid learning fashion. Now, let me give you an example. I had one of my friends, a daughter who came here to complete her MBA, and this was way before before the pandemic, and she stayed with me for a while, where I would inquire how her classes were performed and how did she manage it. So most of the teaching in the local universities here were based on projects, which means the class would be broken down into groups. They would be provided an assignments, and this group goes back, uh, uh, works on that topic, does their research, if required, connects with the required people. They come together as a group, they discuss, and then finally, and that can be done anywhere. So I would see her going to college not more than twice a week. And the day she went to college, those were the times they would be either presenting or they would be sitting with the professors to tell them what they have learned. And the professors then would review that work and give them feedback. And if they needed to go back, they would go back and work. So what this means is most of these universities have adopted hybrid way of working. So can we do that? Can most of the universities adopt that? So which means assessments, evaluations need to evolve and embrace hybrid learning. Health and well-being need more attention. There is definitely a need to coach and mitigate student burnout, which means counseling, which means having mentors, which means creating cohorts where people have time to come talk and also be able to share how they feel about what they're doing. The second part of it is hybrid learning. Now, hybrid learning is here to stay, and universities will need to embed this in their culture by enabling probably the technology, the policy changes, and so on. Now, hybrid culture is not straightforward as well, right? Digital inclusion is important. How do we make learning accessible and engaging for students? So, which means getting feedback from students on what works for them, what does not work for them, creating and enabling the digital requirement, training students on which are those technologies that they can look at is also going to be important as part of academics. What students right now are missing are the curricular activities, the opportunities for teamwork, practical learning, networking, and also, of course, the human interaction that that a campus environment more readily provides. So, how do we enable that balance? Let me tell you, in organizations, we have faced similar challenges, right? For example, Organizations' business context, what the pandemic has done is it made us realize that physical space is best used for uh, people to come together, interact on new ideas, build personal connection, and have shared experiences. Now, these are some of the things which universities can very easily adopt because shared experiences, personal connections can also be built virtually. This will inevitably means downsizing. Offices or university campuses will definitely not disappear, but perhaps the most visible change that will be the design of the physical space and when and how it will be used. That will be important. I'll probably move on to the last slide, please. Okay, so there are challenges ahead, and post pandemic situations will only emerge more agile than they were before. Institutions will have to adopt, will offer, or rather, will have to offer more flexibility to students with blended learning, more intakes, and of course, a wider range of course options. And let me tell you, some of the universities here locally have done that. I interact with the universities very, very often because we do have the placements that, or rather, we have graduate programs where we hire these grads from the local universities here. The significant change that we have seen over the last 1 year is the wide range of course options that they have offered their students. The other thing that they have done is they have got the industry experts to come in and review their curriculum and their programs so that they could get those first hand inputs from the industry experts so that they're able to revise and review their own curriculums. Now, if another crisis hits us, organizations, institutes of the future will be better prepared to react because we have learned over the last 18 months. So, with that, I rest my case, I stop my monologue, and I'm happy to take questions. I'm happy to go through the chat. Please continue to put in your comments. I'm happy to take a lot of easy questions, while probably I can leave all the difficult questions to Dr. Pramila and Dr. Seema.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jacinta. I apologize. It was my mistake. I should have introduced myself. I am Mrs. Deepa Nayak, Assistant Professor at the Institute, and I have with me Dr. Pramila, who is the coordinator of this conference, and Dr. Seema, because of prior commitments, couldn't be part
Ah,
of this
okay.
particular session. She was in the earlier two sessions, and she'll be joining us shortly. I think in another few minutes, she may join us virtually as well.
Sure.
So,
I've only known the beautiful Dr. Pramila, I should say.
oh, well,
Thank
we always tell Dr. Pramila that a qualification to join us in this institute is to be
you.
beautiful. So thank you so much. Yeah, having said that, ma'am, I think before we take questions from the participants, I personally want to ask you a couple of things.
Absolutely.
I think as participants, I request you to please type your questions in the chat box and we can take it up as and when possible. As I was listening to your talk, ma'am, I just realized that your last slide was on agility and resilience. And having seen students in the past 15 years of my teaching, I was always of the opinion that it is more of teaching and less of learning, as in we have so much to tell them and so much, there is so much of spoon feeding which is happening, but there was some kind of gap somewhere which we were not able to identify. But this pandemic has beautifully shown us that resilience is something that students have taught us. They have transformed and adapted to the changes so beautifully. So what do you think, how does this transformation happen? Is it because okay, I think I'll
Yeah, yeah. So look at what was 20 years ago, or maybe I can look at my self as a student at this point in time in the current era. Uh, 20 years ago, when I was a student, there was a complete lack of knowledge or lack of information available, right? There was nothing. I mean, Google could I really go and Google and check what is happening? No, I didn't have any of it, right? I was totally dependent on my professors, my teachers, and everything that they taught me. I pretty much just took it on board. I didn't have a choice whether they were giving me the right guidance or not. Didn't matter, right? The teacher was God for me, and if the teacher said something, this is exactly I would do, right? We came from that generation. Today, I think the students are far more informed. I would say they are smarter. They have information readily available, which means the ability to get handle of things, which is much easier than what it was 20 years ago. Now, what the teachers would have to do is they would have to do a lot of pre-work. In fact, I would not want to be a teacher. I would not want to be a professor, because let me tell you, you have a smart set of students now. It is not easy to coach this group, which means I have to double up on my education to be able to, be at the speed at what they are, right? So, which means the curriculum needs to be relooked at, which means the method of teaching, right? The classroom method of teaching will not work. I cannot imagine myself, I mean, during my graduation, my MBA, sitting in that class for 4 and 5 hours among the 40, 50 students. I don't think I can do that because I'm completely distracted. While I am responding to my emails, while I am also on a conference call, I'm also looking at my mobile, I'm also looking at another gadget. So I do multitasking because I've picked that up. Not that I had learned this anywhere. So which means students will be distracted. The ability to do multiple things has improved. So which means the teachers will have to relook at how we are going to engage the students. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I completely agree on that. And also the fact that there was a time when teachers were doing the, hand holding of students and almost spoon feeding them. But today we have come to a stage where we have realized that teaching is not about helping somebody else. It's also about helping yourself. And then students teach us a lot of things these days. So that is where I think, being in the teaching fraternity, it is been a boon for all of us. Okay, I think we'll quickly go through a few questions. There are
Yeah.
a few questions which
Probably
have
just
come.
one bit of it. Maybe the teaching needs to be replaced with coaching and mentoring. Maybe that
Yes,
might give you some insights.
that transformation has already seeped in. We are in the process now. It is no longer the kind of teaching that used to happen in our generation, of course. But having said that, that cannot be eliminated entirely, is what we feel. Of course, coaching, mentoring, counseling, all of this, all these roles are being played by teachers today. So
Absolutely.
it's a wholesome package that a teacher has to play. She has to be a mother, or whatever, a parent, and a coach, and a mentor, and so many other roles. I think we can have a discussion on that concept itself, as to how many roles does a teacher
Absolutely.
play.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. I think we'll go on to the next question. There is one question asked by Miss Shweta. What are the most common areas for change in the workplace?
Common areas for change. I mean, I can tell you the list can go on and on. Uh, like I told you, the recent initiative that we are running with the government, and let me tell you, most of the countries today are working very closely with their governments, because there is a lot of workers and employees who are currently displaced, which means how do we get them back to the workforce? We have seen the hospitality industry collapsing, we have seen the airline industries collapsing, and so many other industries, which means there are people out there who need to be trained, reskilled, and brought into the other sectors where there are jobs available, right? So, which means pretty much every sector is there. Pick the one which is of your interest. Train yourself, be prepared to reskill, have the right attitude, and go for it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. I think, Shweta, your question is answered. We move on to the next question, ma'am. We have another student, Akash Pai, who asks, how to develop communication skills through webcam? I think that's very important in the present times, ma'am.
I'll tell you, it is very difficult. I can tell you, looking at a screen. In fact, one of the things that we have bought in as a golden rule for any of our conferences or any of our meetings, we all make sure that we are on the video, because it's very very hard to speak to a screen, right? If I don't see a person nodding, if I don't see a person's reaction, it becomes a monologue, right? So the skill starts from making sure that, are you visible, not visible. The second part of it, I spoke about, creating trust in a hybrid workplace. Right now, trust will come in only when you continue to have those social connections, which means picking up the call, talking to people around you, having that connect. For example, let me tell you, today every organization is probably running with around 25 to 30% attrition. What it also means is they're also taking in 25 to 30% of new staff, right? Now, this staff has never met you, has never come into your office, right? Does not know your organization. You have not been able to drill down the culture into them. So, how are we going to create that? We need to have the trust factor, which means calling them, having those conversations, building that trust. So, when I say skills for a webcam, does not only mean how I face the camera, how I speak, but it also means the social interactions around you. How do you build that entire ecosystem, that trust around you to have that conversation?
Yes, ma'am. I completely agree with you on that. In fact, this morning we were just discussing how students need to be now. We have reached a stage where we have to train them on social skills as well. That is what is missing, especially due to the pandemic and the lockdown. They have not moved out of their houses for a very long period of time. So there is a kind of fear that they are facing. They find it difficult to interact with people, and that is again a very important question now. How do you, whether it is a webcam or a face-to-face interaction, what do you talk or what do you say? That is now becoming a big question mark. Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm sure Akash will be very happy with that answer. We move on to the next question, ma'am. We have Atik here who's asking, in fact, a very relevant question. What are the common mistakes students commit during interviews?
All of us create mistakes, so don't worry about it. There are no mistakes anybody commits. Let me tell you, the most important requirement when you attend any interview is being yourself. The mistake that you will probably create is by not being yourself, because let me tell you, the interviewers can look through you. They know exactly what you are trying to say, which you are not, which means you got to be honest, but also remember, you got to go prepared. I mean, if I have an interview tomorrow morning, I am not just going to walk in without doing my groundwork, right? So, which means you need to have the confidence, and confidence will come in only when you are prepared. If it's the particular organization that you're going for interviews for, you got to Google about them. You have to understand what they do. You have to be able to tell them why you can come and add value. Remember, like I mentioned earlier, productivity is going to be extremely important, right? So if productivity is important, efficiency is important, then how are you going to display those skills to that organization on why you need to be hired? Let me give you an example. About 3 years ago, while I was in Melbourne itself, uh, I had a candidate who came to me for interview. I was hiring somebody under my team, and it was for a junior role. So my team members did the first screening, and they liked the candidate. But it was a junior role. They told me, see, this guy seems a little senior, but excellent candidate. Why don't you meet this person? I said, look, I have only a junior role, so what's the point in meeting? But my team was very convinced and said, please go ahead and meet the candidate. The candidate, I set it up. The candidate came to my office. When he walks into the office, he sits in front of me and he opens his laptop. And I was wondering, what is he doing? Why is he opening his laptop? He opened the laptop and he told me that I have read about your organization. I know exactly what you do. I know what your team consists of. I know what are your challenges. I can also tell you these are the 5 things will help to improve this workplace. I was completely blown. Half of it, what he was telling me, was actually crap. But let me tell you, the confidence in which he came, the groundwork he did, and his ability to communicate. I hired the person. I hired the person by making sure that I got a higher indent, a higher role indent, and that person was working with me for 3 years before the person just left. I think about a month ago. An excellent candidate. So these are the skills you would display. Don't worry about what the interviewer is going to tell you, what he thinks. I mean, there's nothing for you to lose. Just go there, give your best, and probably just leave it to that. You have probably you are not selected, but you have learned out of that experience. Yeah,
Yes, ma'am. I think the mantra that Jacinta ma'am just gave students is be yourself, isn't it, ma'am? That's the only
absolutely,
way to, make a mark for yourself.
absolutely.
Ma'am, we are getting a lot of questions now. I'll quickly go through them. I'll be clubbing a few of these questions. I think most of the students are concerned about the challenges due to the changes that have taken place and that may possibly take place in the future as well. So the question is mainly concerning on how do you adapt to these changes and
Yeah.
work peacefully. I think that word struck a chord somewhere.
What is that work?
Work peacefully. How do you adapt to
Okay.
these changes and work peacefully?
Okay. Okay, let me assure the students, I think you guys are in an excellent space right now. And I'll tell you why that is. Today, most of the organizations are facing a minimum of 25 to 30% attrition, most of them, which means there is a shortage of skills. And if there is a shortage of skills, all of you need to be excited. Jump onto it. If you think your skill is not relevant and you aren't seeing any of that, please reskill yourself. Please retrain yourself. If you think probably moving into IT or probably moving into an industry where there are enough and more jobs, start preparing for that. Reskill. Like I said, lifelong learning is important. You got to reskill, you got to be prepared, and you have to pick up the roles which you think you are it interests you and which you think are something probably for the future.
Yes, ma'am. I think that was
And
quite a,
the second part I didn't understand. Work peacefully. Okay, I
yeah,
think work
work.
peacefully. Yeah. Okay. I don't know of any job which where you can perform peacefully. I think it's
Exactly my
peacefully.
thoughts on that.
Yeah, peacefulness is a state of mind, right?
Mind,
And you'll
yes.
have to develop it. Even in a chaos situation, you should be able to be peaceful. I think that's something up to you, and I don't think any organization can offer that to you.
Yes, yes, very true. In fact, it's more about your personality and your nature which keeps you peaceful and stress free rather than the environment. Of course, they are all triggers, but then ultimately it's left to us. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think before we wind up, we'll take one last question. There are many more here. Dear participants, we will forward these questions to the resource person, and maybe if ma'am finds the time, you could answer them and get back to us so that we can send it back to the participants. Most of these questions, as I said, are on the sudden changes that have happened and the impact of pandemic. Even on YouTube, the questions we have received are similar. I think we'll just take one last question, ma'am, with your
No,
permission.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I could take a couple of them. That's okay. I'm perfectly fine.
Okay, we have one question from Mr. Balakrishna TV. I read read his question. Psychology is highly hampered during lockdown and work from home. How the motivation from HR point of view of the resources in your IT company address to productivity?
Yeah, yeah.
That's his question, ma'am.
Right. I think employee well-being has been the most important piece of everything that we do, at least at Infosys. When we started our journey 18 months ago, when we hit the pandemic, obviously we all knew that this is not going to end soon. Everybody, the world was shutting down, right? We knew this would last at least for a minimum 1 year, but obviously that got stretched and it still continues. So, a couple of things that we as HR team in the organization started looking at. One is we started reviewing our own policies around providing benefits to employees who are working from home, providing looking at their insurance policies. Remember, the entire Hospital expenses increased, right, during COVID because the family started getting in. So we started increasing the coverage for our employees at the expense of the organization. The other thing that we started doing is people were stuck up across the world, right? They had finished their assignments and they could not come back to India. There were, the borders were closing down. There were no flights available. There was a massive rush. What Infosys did was we organized charter flights. So we had one charter coming, or the two charter flights coming from US. We had one coming from Europe. We had one from Australia, which left Melbourne, then went to Singapore, and then to India. We made sure that people got back safely home, right? Then came the situation of looking after people virtually. So we had various health initiatives that were running parallelly, which was meditation, yoga. We had tie-ups with different vendors from outside, experts who came and spoke to our people on how they needed to manage, what they needed to do to keep their health and safety in mind. While we did that, we also started involving the families, right? So, which means we had sessions for the kids of the family. The spouses started joining us. We had a lot of spouses who were either trained, in yoga, trained in various other life skills that were required. They came forward and started helping us in conducting these sessions for our employees. So we pretty much started involving the families in what we were doing. So which meant the families didn't feel left out. They felt part of Infosys. So that was really the idea. The other thing that we did last year was uh, we have this concept of project parties where people go out, come, and there's a budget that the organization gives, and people go out and spend, and they go for a meal or whatever. Obviously, we could not do it, and we were doing that every quarter. Last 1.5 year, we could not do any of it, right? Last December, we sent gifts and packages to people's homes, right? So the families were touched. We send them letters, we send them goodies, we send them a lot of things during the Christmas period. So we tried a few things where we were able to touch upon the or rather be able to connect with the families and not just our employee alone. We kind of looked at the entire 360 impact of our people, and obviously counselors were available. And based on the legislations for each of the countries, we made sure all of the policies were re-looked at, and so on and so forth.
That is wonderful, ma'am. I'm sure being a part of the Infosys family is a blessing in itself. Thank you so much. I think that will be the end of our question and answer session, and all the remaining questions I will definitely mail it to the resource person and we'll get back to you. I think Mr. Balakrishna has also given his opinion on what you just on the answers that you gave to his
I
question.
just saw that, yeah.
Nice well-being initiatives, really effective and creates bonding. Thanks. I'm sure everybody agrees with him on this. Now, before we move on to the vote of thanks, there's a small 1-minute video which is made. I would now like to play that with your permission, ma'am. And followed by the video, we will move on to the vote of thanks. Participants, please note the feedback link will be posted immediately after the video.
On behalf of SDM College of Business Management Postgraduate Center for Management Studies and Research, Mangalore, we take this opportunity to acknowledge Ms. Jacinta with pride for sharing your valuable thoughts on navigating the workplace transformation of our lifetime. On 8th of October 2021, and enlightening young minds with your words of wisdom. Your virtual presence and intellect helped magnify our event in the most meaningful way. Thank you, Ms. Jacinta, who is working as HR Business Leader Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, Japan in Infosys. We wish you the best in all your future endeavors.
Thank you so much. That was really sweet. And I really wish a great career to all you students. Let me tell you, I think you are graduating at an apt time, and let me tell you, there are so many opportunities that would be waiting for you. I don't think there is any reasons for you to be stressed at all. I think this is one of the best times to come into the workforce.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Participants, please note the feedback link is now being posted. You can give your feedback on this session as well. Yes. A heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Jacinta for taking out time from her schedule and getting us through a lot of issues and challenges which are being faced. And I'm really thankful to you, ma'am, for the way in which you have answered the questions our students have, because stress, change are some queries that they have been always addressing. And now the atmosphere is such that most of them feel because of the pandemic, their future is bleak, their career prospects are not very good, and they have always had a lot of apprehensions about their future. So I think your talk and, of course, your answers to their queries have now given them a safe place to move ahead. Thank you very much for your encouragement, ma'am. A warm thanks also goes to all our participants for being a part of this session. Thank you, dear participants. I also thank my conference coordinator, Dr. Pramila ma'am, for organizing this, for getting us a lovely person like Miss Jacinta, who took us. It was almost a very mesmerizing session for all of us. We went through a lot of issues, which though were at the back of our mind, we were not very keen on getting answers to those issues. So thank you very much, ma'am, for organizing this conference. I also thank our director, ma'am, in her absence, for the encouragement and support that she always gives to all our activities and endeavors. My thanks also goes out to all the members of the management for supporting us in all our activities at the institute. I also thank the students who have been lively and actively participating in all the activities that we conduct here, without whose participation none of the activities are possible. So a big thank you to all our students who have participated. I assure you that all your questions will be answered. They will be forwarded to the resource persons in each of the sessions, and the answers or replies that we receive will be forwarded to all of you. Thank you very much, participants. I hope you all have already used the link given for the feedback, and the feedback forms are filled in. Before we leave this session, I would like to bring to your notice that tomorrow morning, sharp at 9:30 a.m., we have the next session, that is by Mr. Pavan Prabhudev Mane, followed by the last session or the fourth session at 11:30. So as we had two sessions this morning, we will have two sessions tomorrow morning as well. So join us for the next two sessions tomorrow morning. Sharp at 9:30, the sessions will begin. And by 9:15, we would expect all of you to be present for the sessions. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Ma'am, I'm sure you have another couple of hours to finish your work. So we wouldn't be taking much of your time. Thank you so much for being a part of this program and encouraging our students in all the ways that you just did. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jacinta.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pamela. Bye-bye.